Factoring by grouping works on some, but not all polynomials with 4 terms. So here's the general strategy for factoring by grouping. Split the 4 terms into 2 groups of 2 terms each. Factor the greatest common factor out of each group. Factor a common binomial out of each group. Some remarks. If the third term is negative, we mostly factor a minus sign from the second group. This will be the case in our second example. It does not matter how we split the 4 terms into 2 groups of 2 terms each. Let's illustrate this with the examples on page 36. So factor by grouping. First example, 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 12x minus 18. We use the basic strategy. So first, we split into 2 groups. Next, we factor out the greatest common factor out of each group. For the first group, we have 2x cubed and 3x squared, which has greatest common factor x squared. Factoring out an x squared out of the first group, we get x squared times 2x minus 3. For the second group, we have 12x and 18, which has a greatest common factor of 6. Factoring out 6, we find 6 times 2x minus 3. Next, we factor out the common binomial 2x minus 3. We are left with x squared plus 6, and that is our final answer. Second example. 12y minus 24xy minus 2x plus 4x squared. Again, we use the basic strategy. First thing we should always do in factoring is factoring out the greatest common factor. 12y, 24xy, 2x, and 4x squared have a 2 in common. The greatest common factor is 2. So factoring out a 2, we are left with 6y minus 12xy minus x plus 2x squared. Now we proceed with the strategy for factoring by grouping, so we split into 2 groups. Next, we factor out the greatest common factor out of each group. For 6y and 12xy, the greatest common factor is 6y. So we factor out 6y and are left with 1 minus 2x. For the second group, we have x and 2x squared, in which we have a greatest common factor of x. Factoring out an x, we are left with 1 minus 2x. Next, we factor out the common binomial 1 minus 2x out of both groups. And we are left with 6y minus x. And this is our final answer.